Joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline from HuskyFan.ca, Wray Morrison from out in Nova Scotia. Ray, not the Friday and the weekend I'm sure you had planned or the U of S Huskies had planned.
No, that's for sure. You know, this Husky team, with that undefeated playoff run, they went on boarding at 6-0, and then, just how good things looked with the goaltending of Nolan Meyer and the scoring of Connor Roulette. It was a little bit of a shocker last night to see the 8th-seeded St. Mary's team come in and do what they did. But St. Mary's credit, they came in, they played a physical game, probably the most physical game of the year that the Huskies have had to play, and went up 3-0, generated some chances. That's a good St. Mary's team. They have one player too, Liam Arnsby, number 61, and he was a thorn in the side of a lot of the Huskies last night. He played a physical brand of hockey, but was also in on the offense too. Had quite a bit of ice time for St. Mary's, and yeah, the Dogs just when you got to dig out from 3-0 down, you don't always pull those out. The Huskies they did come close, but it's a different game if you don't spot the other team a field goal 35 minutes in hockey. It can work against you, and it did for USAS last night.
Do you think? I don't want to call anyone out, but do you think the U of S Huskies were maybe ill prepared for what they were going to face? Was there enough tape? Was there enough time to figure out what St. Mary's was going to bring to them?
Well, I don't think it was a matter of preparation. I think it was just St. Mary's game plan and looking at the Huskies that, we're just going to play physical. We're just going to hit everything and see what we can do. And like I said, they didn't see that all year. So I'm not sure it was a lack of preparation so much so as St. Mary's really adjusting to what Saskatchewan likes to do, and that's, have big forwards but speedy centermen down the ice. And when you take that away, you're able to generate some chances. And that's what St. Mary's was able to do. By the way, they also have the number one goal scorer in U Sports, Ben Allison. If I'm not mistaken, he had something like 50 points in their 30 games in the regular season or something. So it's not like it was, they ran him out of the rink, but St. Mary's is also a talented team. And it's always interesting in these U Sports events, as we talked about before, when they do these seedings as well. So, St. Mary's the host team, number 8, but when you get to these 8 teams, there's really not much that separates them.
It started in 2015, Ray, this new format where it's a single elimination competition now. There's no pool play. There's no round robin. There's nothing. So now you and the Huskies, I'm sure, have plane tickets booked next week. You're sitting there. They're done. It's a one-and-done format.
Yeah, I'm really lucky because I'm tied in with the Husky athletics staff that they actually do get me out tomorrow party. So I'm back home tomorrow at 3:00. So it is good. They know I got a granddaughter that's looking forward to Grandpa watching her play hockey at the Gemini. So I am going to hustle back. But yeah, no, it is interesting. The format. It's not something that I'll be totally honest with you. And I had this conversation with Pierre Arsenault, the U Sports CEO, before last night's game, because he's got a deep hockey background. Pierre actually spent some time with Hockey Saskatchewan, believe it or not. Huh. But even he said, and I was mentioning to him, I said, if we can get back to, sort of a round-robin format with maybe 6 teams or something, that might make a little more sense. And you can wrap it up with these student-athletes in the same amount of time. But there has been a move, for whatever reason, for representation. That's what they want. They want representation. I think one of the things is, when the OUA schools host, because that's where the base of the population is, sometimes they'll have 3 or maybe even 4 teams in the tournament since they've changed it. So, like the Memorial Cup, nobody's ever happy with that format either, it seems. Yeah. And then this is one of those things. But yeah, you think about Mount Royal. So there's no more Canada West teams left in this year's event after day 1. And Mount Royal, they lost last year as well. So they flew all the way to Ottawa for one game, fly home. This year they fly all the way across the country to Halifax from Calgary. After one game, they fly home. Yeah. So I think there must be a better way, but I'm not totally sure that that's going to be something that U Sports talks about. And it's not just hockey. This year, in the Canada West basketball playoffs, Fraser Valley from BC and Mount Royal both flew to Saskatoon for one women's basketball game to see who would play the Huskies the next night in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you look at that. I mean, there's probably some tweaking at U Sports that can maybe be done in several sports, not just hockey.
Absolutely. You know what? I think about how great those tournaments were. Mind you, the Huskies were there when it was hosted at a packed Sask Place back in the late 90s. I think that was fantastic. But hey, then people will say, well, the NCAA March Madness, it's one and done, and it's look where it is. So I don't know, Ray. It's you feel gutted for the team, the staff, everybody. But at the end of the day, it was the same format for everybody. And then maybe in closing, is there one? Is there even a close to a favorite for this thing now? Because the number one, Huskies are out. St. Mary's, Windsor beats Mount Royal. They shade them 4-3. Is there a front runner in this thing?
Well, now the number 2 seed New Brunswick is still in, and they win AUS after AUS championships. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't have Mr. Google in front of me right now, Marty, but I think they won the last 7 or 8 AUS, the Atlantic Championships.
Wow!
And now that the number 2 seed is gone, this might open the door for NB to come in. But it's funny. I watched a little bit of the UQTR game today, and they've got a big team up front.
Huh?
And I'm not even sure how that game ended up today. I do believe they beat Moncton. So
4-0. 4-0.
Yeah, and again, you're talking one game for the gold medal, right? So none of these teams came here to play for a silver medal. So you're still talking about elimination hockey. And as we found out last night, and Mount Royal found out yesterday afternoon, anything can happen in these one-game shots.
No doubt, Ray. Well, thanks for making time. Hopefully everything's on time tomorrow and you make it back to the Gemini and able to watch the granddaughter. But I appreciate you doing this, and travel safe.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Marty. We'll chat soon.
Voice of Husky Athletics, Wray Morrison, huskyfan.ca from Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a Sports Cage, the home of local sports in Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.